My guest today is actress singer Kerry Frances. Now, she is best known from the hit movie Knives Out, as well as Poker Face on Peacock, and she can now be seen in the brand new Wake Up Dead Man opposite Daniel Craig, Glenn Close, and Mila Kunis, as well as Josh O'Connor. But she has also done theater, playing the daughter of Tobel, played by Harvey Fierstein, and Theo Beacle in Fiddler on the Roof, along with originating the lead in many off-Broadway shows and countless other productions. Now, Kerry made her writer and director debut on her brand new short film, Mama Mama, which will have its LA premiere at the iconic HollyShorts Film Festival, and she has also produced and starred in the film, along with producing two additional features. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker, actress, singer Kerry Frances and her brand new short film, Mama Mama, to the show. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so tell me, when did you get into acting?
I have always wanted to act since I was very, very small. I would sit and watch TV, and when there were kids on the TV, I would cry because I didn't understand how they were in the TV and I wasn't. And I got into, community theater, voice lessons, all of those things, and lots of big cattle call auditions in New York because I grew up right in New Jersey, so that was accessible. And I started pitching to my parents that I wanted to come out to LA for pilot season right around age 11. So this has been they did not go for it, by the way, but I got here, so it worked out.
So,
Um,
did you go into theater before you went into, let's say, film acting?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think the proximity of New York City mixed with the fact that I am a singer and I've always been a singer, those two things just kind of naturally combined. Theater's so accessible for kids to go do a community show. So it just led me in that path. And right out of theater school, I booked a big Broadway tour, Fiddler on the Roof, as you mentioned in the intro. And that was with these iconic actors playing Tevye. And that really rerouted my whole life. So I'm really glad I got up and went to that open call that morning.
Well, with many actors, it seems to me, from what I have read and those that I've interviewed, those that have gone through the theater route first before entering into film seem to be a bit more well-rounded as an actor than those who did not. Do you agree?
I do agree. I think that all actors have different paths to get to where they're going to go in their careers, and there's no one right path. But I do think that theater training and working as a professional theater actor is a completely different ballgame. I always say that if you have studied theater or done really musical theater is even a notch higher. You can do quite literally anything because in musical theater they might say, "Hey, can you learn how to juggle on this moving animal and speak in German by tomorrow?" And you just go, okay, sure. And I think that really carries over into TV film where I trust in myself and I know I can really do anything. And it just gives you a different level of training.
Well, between theater and film, are the beats different?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole experience is so different. Live theater, live musicals, you are with the audience. They are experiencing it in real time, even though you've done the show a billion times in the same way over and over and over. And I think we have to give them that gift of as though we've never done it before. And just, the comedic timings, waiting for applause, all of those things that maybe affect your performance in a different way. And then with film and TV, obviously it's a lot of sitting around and waiting. It's a lot of, tiny little changes, just getting coverage for each different shot. Um, I love theater, I love musicals, but there's something about film and TV for me that my soul just longs for. I love it. I feel better when I'm on set. Everything makes sense to me when I'm doing film and TV.
Well, was there a particular film that inspired you to become an actress?
Since I was so little when I wanted to be on TV and film, I remember watching The Worst Witch on an old VHS over and over and over. I would watch Mary Kate and Ashley movies with my sister on repeat over and over and over. Lots of detective series. So I do think there's a connection between where my career is at now with this detective series I'm in, and just a lot of of kid movies, but Life with Mikey really affected me. Life with Mikey was Michael J. Fox, maybe like early 90s. I'm not sure when I saw it. And he was a talent agent and he discovered this girl on the East Coast who could sing and dance. And, it became a story about their relationship and her life. But that movie really affected me. I remember thinking very, very clearly, I need an agent. And that's what I meant to do.
Well, it's funny, Carrie, because when when you and I were working to schedule this interview, I contacted a very dear friend of mine who I talk with on a regular basis, and you know who she is. It happens to be actress Kay Callan, who was also in Knives Out.
Yes.
And I said, Kay, I go, I'm interviewing Kerry Frances. Do you remember her? And she goes, yes, very delightful. So,
Oh, she did. That makes me so happy. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Kay and I did not cross on the set of Knives Out, but afterward, once it came out, we went to a couple of things together. Some other events here in LA, and we spent some time together chatting and had some emails. And she is formidable, a force to be reckoned with, and she is just talent upon talent. So, when I was little and in this phase of I want to be an actor, I got her book. She has agents guide books, and I read that book to cover. I still have the copy. It is tattered, and I think it's so neat to look back and think. In a lot of ways, I can trace everything I'm doing now to when I was little, and really sort of seeing this, visualizing this, manifesting this career for myself. And I recently found that book again in my mom's new home. And I said, oh my gosh, like I carried that book around with me like it was in my emotional support. And then all those years later, I did a movie with Kay and became friends with her. So it's really special to me. I love that you know her.
that is so great because I actually have that book and she sent me three of her books. A lot of people do not realize that she is an author, but it is the inside workings of a Hollywood. And to hear you that you actually have a copy besides me is just absolutely fantastic. And now you are in the brand new version. I guess what is this, the third film based on
It is,
Knives
yes.
Out, and this one is actually Wake Up Dead Man. So opposite of Daniel Craig, Glenn Close, Mila Kunis. So what was that experience like?
Tremendous. It was really, really special. It was the first movie I've gotten to film out of the country. So we filmed at Warner Brothers out in London, and I really wanted to go to London. I've been dying to go to Europe, and to get to go in this capacity for work, so special. And just to be on the Warner Brothers lot in London is incredible for me. And so, yeah, working with them was great. It was wonderful to be reunited with Daniel, who I'm so lucky immediately hugged me and knew exactly who I was. It had been probably 5 years since we'd seen each other. His team remembered me, his security remembered me. I felt really special and involved. And it was great, a very different experience than Knives Out, where we filmed in Boston. We were primarily in the main house, all hanging out in the basement. This was really on a studio lot and, kind of makeshift green rooms and trailers, and a bit of a different experience. And it has a bit of a different tone to it as the movie. And that kind of affects, I think, the whole experience for everyone. But it was wonderful. It was great to connect with Glenn Close. We had a lot of fun conversations. She's just so sweet. She has her little sweet dog Pippin with her. And I got to ask a lot of questions to these talents that I admire and just observe and be there. And I'm really lucky. I'm really glad to be part of this movie. I think everyone is going to love it.
Oh, well, I am so happy to hear that your experiences with some of these amazing actors. And, to think that you go from Broadway to the big silver screen, but now you have written, produced, directed, and acted in your own short film, Mama Mama. So, where did the idea of this story come from? And is it from personal experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again so much for watching it. That means so much to me. Yes. So Mama Mama came about after I went and filmed the TV show Poker Face season one. I got home and my very best friend in the world, who was a sweet little rescue dog, a Morkie, Henry Bear, he died. And so people typically, yes, as soon as I say that, they're like, where's this story going? But those two things together created an avalanche in my life. And so by that, I mean, I'd been on Poker Face. It was primarily a female set. There were so many female execs. There were sisters running the show, the Zuckerman sisters, whom I love and admire. They took me under their wing. An executive producer took me under her wing. And it was very clear from our conversations they were seeing something in me that I had been ignoring, which was my filmmaker side, in favor really of this career I'd made out of playing a lot younger, musical theater, playing kids, teenagers, being a people pleaser, being very sweet and agreeable. And to be a filmmaker, you have to rip yourself out of old ways of being. You have to step into your higher self. At least that's the way I see it, in order to make something that's going to resonate with a wide audience. And so I get home from all of these women really pouring into me, spending free time with me, teaching me things about the industry, and Henry dies. And so those two things together really just created an explosion within myself where I could no longer keep these parts of myself locked down. And suddenly I had the freedom without my life being dictated by a lot of senior dog medicines and making sure he was happy and comfortable. And I am so glad that I was able to do that for him. But suddenly I had freedom I hadn't had in a very, very long time. And that whole experience, I sat down, I wrote this short in about a half an hour. And it was in that grief induced haze of losing, my comfort, my best friend. And I, I actually sent it first to, well, the story came from thinking about if Henry had died and he had been a human child, if he had been a 12-and-a-half-year-old boy, how would that be different in my life? How would friends and family have reacted versus it's a dog? And I definitely see the separation. I understand the difference. But to me, he was very much my child. And so that got me thinking. And I had been thinking a lot about women's roles in society and in the entertainment industry, and how we often are asked to essentially sit still and be pretty and not cause any waves or ask for what we deserve or speak up. And having been on this set with these powerful women, all of those things started swirling around in my head. So I created that story really from the loss of Henry. And what's so special is that story, those 10 pages have really, really changed my whole life. So he's with me through this whole experience as all these doors have opened, and these film festivals and signing with my literary management and all of the opportunities that have come with a little tiny reminder he's part of all of this.
Oh, that is awesome. Now, your film deals with dissociation, which is a pretty heavy subject for a short film.
Yeah, it is. As a story writer, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, I'm very interested in psychology. I've always been very interested in psychology. I would take, if I found like parenting books or psychology books that maybe my mom was reading about raising, young girls or whatever it was she was reading, I would take those books as the young child and read them. I've always been extremely fascinated by the way our minds work, the way that our brains work, family patterns, brain grooves, neuroplasticity, the whole thing. And so I really thought it was an interesting idea to think if this mother was seeing a child where everyone else is seeing a dog, what would that be like? And how would that affect the story? And how would that affect the camera angles? And I think the best things I make are just sort of told to me. They just kind of pour through me. So I write a lot of songs. I don't sit down and say, I'm going to write a song. I hear a song in my head that doesn't exist, and I get it into my voice memos as fast as possible. That was the case with this as well. I saw the story being told to me. Um, and yes, I think dissociation for a 10-minute short is an interesting topic to navigate, but hopefully that will come across in the story. Hopefully the audience will resonate with it, and it'll be conveyed in those 10 minutes.
Well, when I read the log line, which I think with this film is very important. You have to
It's
read the log line.
very important.
Now,
Yeah.
here's what I found out. If you don't read the log line on this film, so what I did was I watched the film for the first time, then I went back to watch the film again to tell myself, okay, take out dissociation and just watch it. And is there something else do I see? So when I did that, I looked at your character because you're playing mama. So I looked at your character and I'm like, okay, if if I didn't know she was dealing with dissociation and I met this woman, what would I think? And
Mhm.
I'm thinking, did she have a miscarriage? Is she dealing with that loss? Did she lose her child to sudden infant death syndrome? Or is she having a periodic schizophrenic type episode? Because even in the film, the one the actress that plays your sister, the things that she said, I'm like, yeah, that would fit. That would fit.
Mhm.
So, but here's the thing about your film. It really shines a light not only on dissociation, but we need to be aware of others that may be going through various things that can affect their mental health. Because
Yes.
even with your film, if I looked at it at face value, you could almost you can pick up a sense of grief and loss, and a lot of people don't know how to handle those emotions, especially if they're by themselves.
That's right.
And but then you as an actress, so I went back for the third time and now I'm watching it from an acting point of view. So my question is, because there was so much depth here, how did you prepare for the part which you wrote? You're playing someone with a mental health issue, which isn't easy, but then you add dissociation or even disillusionment. That's got to be a little tricky.
Yes, and thank you for all of that. All of those things are so wonderful to hear because so much of that is exactly what I've been hoping would resonate with people. So that's wonderful. Um, and it is also very tricky to talk about the film in interviews because I want it to be a surprise, right? I want people to not know what's coming. And so I've had to be very careful how I'm talking about it, how much of the plot I'm sharing. Um, it was very important to me that no one had character names as a reflection of how society sees women. If you are a young woman who is not married or doesn't have children by a certain age, a young age, it becomes the focus of everyone's attention on your life. Or if you're married but you don't have kids yet, well, when are you having kids? When are you having kids? We keep putting women in the roles of mothers and wives, and then anything they do beyond that, oh my gosh, amazing girl boss, entrepreneurial queen. We're just people, right? So it shouldn't be if you do or don't have a child that you can or can't relate. We all love and lose in our own ways. We all have immense struggles in our own ways. I think raising a child or children is incredibly hard. So many of my friends and my sister raise young small children right now, and I think it's like the Olympics. It's constant hurdles, constant change. But as someone who is very career focused and is not currently raising children and not currently married, I am facing a bevy of intense struggle and problems that they can't fathom. And I think finding that in my relationships where I can accept and say I can't really understand fully what it's like to birth and raise a child. I haven't done it. And you can't actually understand what it's like to be someone pursuing a career in this entertainment industry, which is the Wild West. And let's just be there for each other and support each other. That was very important to me. And then in terms of the acting, yes. So I really like to play parts that are intense, that are darker. I think it's a very helpful tool to be able to access that within myself for work so that I'm not accessing it in myself in my life. It gives me an outlet to put that emotion and those darker feelings or the depth that I have within myself into a safe, contained area to play with and explore, but not just me and my regular life in my home. And then, oh gosh, what do I do with all this? Um, so I think I found it to be significantly easier than I thought it would be to go between being in front of the camera and then calling cut and coming to the other side of the camera and watching back what we had, keeping an eye on our toddler and our dog actors who, which, you know, everyone says don't work with children or animals. And I said, for my first short, let me get an animal and a toddler. And I knew the toddler, he had played my son on Poker Face. So that was great. And I know the parents of the dog and the dog himself very well. And he was just sensational. I thought he stole all his scenes. But I did find it a lot easier than I would have expected to go between. And I think the crew people I had with me, my first AD, who also edited the film, Kevin Seaman, he is unbelievably talented, and I felt very secure leaving the set in his hands when I was acting. And the same thing with Zach Morrison, who was my DP, so talented, great eye, and I felt confident in those two men to support what I was doing when I was on camera. When I needed to, I would step away and emotionally prep, and then I would come in and just call action right away. And I think that really helped me too to separate.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people who want to direct their first film, and usually it's a short film, you have to choose a great DP because, like you just said, it takes the pressure off because they already know what you're wanting because you know you have multiple meetings before the film's ever started. So they already have a sense of what you want. They, you know, if you're going by a storyboard or you're going by the shot list, they know. And it allows the director to put faith in that DP and not have to worry anything. And I've talked to people who have worked with people like Michael Mann and Peter Farrelly and all of these, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, they say, go do this and don't mess it up. And they walk away. They expect it to be done exactly what they want, and it's done, and there's no worries. And hear you say that, that's what I want a lot of young filmmakers to realize. Pick your team wisely. And it sounds like you did.
Absolutely. And also, I would add to that, pick people you like because you are now entering into a long, long shoot days, long relationship. Kevin and I, luckily, we've known each other since high school. And we have a shorthand. We understand each other very well. Our humor is very similar. And he brought Zach in. And I trusted Kevin so much that I knew Zach would be a wonderful addition. You know, I'm really lucky the sets I'm on, a lot of them are led by the same team. And that team has really embraced me. And I'm lucky to learn. That's been my filmmaking school, is to be on set. When I'm not acting, I'm behind Video Village. I'm asking questions. I'm learning the whole time. I've seen the storyboards. I understand how the process goes. And I don't think I realized how much I was immersed in that and how much I had taken it in until I did this project. And I remembered everything I had learned. I think the most important thing is that if you are the director, you're setting the tone for the whole experience for everyone. It trickles all the way down. And if you are panicked or you're anxious, even the way you speak, right? I've noticed that when directors speak calmer, softer, we're fine. You know, it's not babying people. It's a intentional choice of how they're speaking versus panicked, faster, higher pitched. You're setting the tone. So I knew to just instinctively set the tone for the whole environment. And I think that all those things that I've learned over the course of all these years with this filmmaking team, being on their sets, um, paid off. It was just in there.
Yeah, I mean, even you know, even Francis Ford Coppola said the same thing. He goes, even if you show up on set and you're not really sure what to do, act like you do.
Yes. Yes, 100%. I really think too, being exposed to so many A-level talent, right? A-list talent, the best of the best. I've gotten to work with so many incredible name talents. And so I've learned what I think a lot of young actors and filmmakers do not get right away, which is there is no difference between me and them. They have just as many worries, they have just as many struggles. They're in their head, they're in between scenes trying to answer questions and make decisions, checking on their kids, planning trips, planning moves. Life does not stop. There is no arrival point, which I think a lot of people get into this entertainment industry to find an arrival point where they have no problems. Everything's been solved. They're good, and that does not exist. I actually think it's the opposite. New levels, new devils, right? So the bigger the projects I work on and the bigger exposure has come with a whole new landscape of situations and questions and problem solving that I didn't anticipate. Even this with HollyShorts, right? I had no idea how to expect or what to do with the volume of forms and questionnaires and things you have to fill out and information you have to send. And I am learning in real time. But the what you just said about Francis Ford Coppola, that's exactly right. I am acting like I know what I'm doing. I have my leadership hat on. I believe in myself. I know to make very fast decisions. Trust those decisions. Once you make that decision, it is the right decision, and just keep moving forward. And I think that that's where a lot of people can get stuck. So I'm so lucky I've had these experiences with this level of work. Most people's first movie is like a student film. My first movie was a $60 million mega blockbuster hit with Lionsgate, right? So when you're thrown into the deep end, you have to learn how to swim.
That's it. And I want to talk about the scene with you and the therapist because I watched that scene so many times that in the beginning of the scene, you appear very normal. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, normal people go get counseling. Uh, you appear very normal, but there's this vulnerability. But then there's this other layer, and it's the dissociation. And the therapist is trying to walk you through it. And it's a very tense scene. It's very emotional. Even the audience is going to feel it. And and they're going to have the same feeling as Jacqueline Collier did in the film Who Plays Your Sister. It's like she has good days, she has bad days, but you have that silent feeling of, what do I do? I want to help her, but I feel helpless.
Yes.
And it's a very powerful scene.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. I agree. And I do hope the audience feels exactly what you just described. That would be my goal here, is to make them feel that. And also, for what you just said, we do not know what people are going through. It's very, very easy in this day and age. There's a very popular, the let them theory, let them. And if he wanted to, he would. And all these phrases that get really sold on social media. And that is not true at all. If someone wanted to, they would. No. Maybe someone wants to, and they are so unbelievably riddled with anxiety. The thought of reaching out to you is so crippling and so overwhelming. They literally can't. They cry about it every day, right? Or let them. Okay, what if they are in so much pain and they really, really need to hear from you, and you aren't because you feel discarded by them, or you feel, we have no idea what is going on with people day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute in this world. And I think presenting mama as, like you said, a normal girl, like, just a run of the mill millennial. Um, she's just at therapy, and we don't even really know she's at therapy. A little bit in, and I think everyone to an extent dissociates in their own life. A lot of that comes from social media and cell phones, right? So scrolling is a form of dissociation, but that's not really talked about. Or online shopping, to where you just sort of forget everything that's going on in your day and what you have to decide. That's a form of dissociation. Binge watching shows, obviously indulging in an extensive amount of drinking or substances or anything like that's going to make you dissociate. But we think about that when we think about dissociation. We think about mental health. We think about abuse of alcohol. We don't necessarily think day to day. Think about when you're driving and you just zone out. You're just driving on autopilot. You're dissociating. You've gone somewhere else in your head. And I'm really hoping that people will look at their own lives and say, where am I dissociating? Where am I not fully anchored within myself from watching Mama experience the arc that she experiences mentally in this movie?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. With social media and the cell phone, and if people ever look up the timer on their cell phones the next day to find out how many hours they've been on it, and sometimes it'll say 6 hours, 4 hours, and 9 hours, that's dissociation.
Mm-hmm.
And people think they have to be in the know. There are people who are trying to get through their day and find a way in which they can waste time, and a cell phone can make the clock speed by really fast. And it was funny because as you were talking, I had interviewed a hypnotherapist once, and I said, what's the myth behind the whole thing? And he goes, people think you're sitting there staring at a watch going back and forth. He goes, that's not really it. He goes, think about when you get in your car and you drive to your destination. And by the time you get to your destination, you've been thinking about something completely different and you have no idea. You know you've arrived to your location, but you don't remember changing lanes, turning the steering wheel, putting your blinker on, setting at the red light because your brain is somewhere else. And you've already explained that. And that's exactly what dissociation really is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I also believe in our brain's abilities to be rewired and to be reprogrammed. I think everyone would benefit from looking into neuroplasticity. There's so many interesting studies about working with prisoners and regular people and people who have experienced severe trauma, and the idea that we can really work with our brains to help our brains benefit us instead of them just trying to keep us safe at all times, which really is what all of this roots down to. It's when you've experienced a severe trauma the way Mama has, your brain is really trying to protect you. It doesn't want you to be in that pain. And so it takes you away so that you're not in that pain. When really the most important thing is to face that head on, get the support you need so that you don't spend the rest of your life being run by your brain. You run your life and your brain is working for you.
That's it. Now, how did you come to cast Kim Barrios, Lynn, and Jacqueline Collier?
Yeah, so Kim had been connected by a mutual friend, and she was also based in New Jersey, which is where we filmed the movie, which is also where I was living. We filmed this in my childhood home. My own mother, who graciously said, I'll go stay with, our family 40 minutes away." She did. My family lives at the beach, and so she went and had a little beach week. And that was so gracious and generous of her. And I wanted to do it in New Jersey. Kevin and Zach were in New Jersey, and when Kim was suggested to me, I watched some of the stuff she had done. I went to her website, watched her reels. I think she is fantastic. I think when she hits the right thing, she's going to explode. And I knew I could trust her with this. Even just our initial conversation, I immediately was like, oh, she'll know what she's doing. And then Jacqueline, I had known because I had released a Christmas song. And part of the press I did for that Christmas song was going to something called Christmas Con in New Jersey, which is Hallmark in real life. And that's opened a lot of wonderful doors, but I knew her from that. And I felt confident she would say yes to this project, and that both of them would do so with the little money I was able to offer. So that's how those came to be.
So, how many days did it take to shoot it?
2.
Good.
2 days, my childhood home, and $1,000, and now it's going to play over at Grauman's Chinese Theater, which is just really proof you can do anything.
I was gonna. That was my next question because now Mama Mama is making its LA premiere at the HollyShorts Film Festival, which of course is a great accomplishment, and to have your LA premiere there. So I guess it was worth going through all the paperwork.
It sure was. It was. And you know what I think is so interesting too? It's another point of we don't know. We have no idea. I was so certain this was like a wild card reach, if you will, like when you apply to schools and you just throw in Yale for fun or something. That's how this felt to me. And I've gotten into a handful of others, but there were a few that I submitted to, and I said, I will absolutely get into this. You know, some like really small New Jersey based ones for New Jersey filmmakers, or really small dog themed film festivals. I didn't get into any of those. And so it's been so interesting to see the ones I've gotten into. I find in my life when I aim small and lower, it doesn't work out. And when I aim really big, like way outside my comfort zone, it always works out. So it's a good reminder for me. And I am so thrilled to be premiering at HollyShorts. I mean, that's such an iconic, not only film fest, but theater and tourist spot. I still remember the first time I went there and posed with the hands and the feet, cement. What are they called? Imprints.
Yeah.
Um, and how incredibly special and cool that was. And now, I mean, that was 16 years ago. I was on tour doing that, and so now to be back and to be playing there, my movie that I wrote and directed that came from me is really just, it's almost hard to put into words how special and cool it is, and terrifying. In between all these excited thoughts, I absolutely have all the artist thoughts, which are like, well, it's probably terrible and probably no one's going to like it. You know, the things that we just kind of make up in our heads, which I then counter and say, no, it got in for a reason, and I'm just so honored to be selected for Holly Shorts this year.
Yeah, I think Holly Shorts is one of the premier film festivals in America. It's grow, even though this is its 21st year, um the certain film festivals are gaining a lot more power because now with Holly Shorts, it's not only an Oscar qualifying film festival, it's a BAFTA qualifying festival. So some films get to look at both sides of the Atlantic on this thing. And I have favorites, and Holly Shorts is definitely one of my favorite film festivals. So yeah, I think it's going to be an amazing uh 10 days for this film festival. And so what block did they put you in?
They put me in closing night, which is also very cool. I wrote my manager right away and I said, is that good? Or do you think it was so bad that they just threw it at the end because people won't be coming by then? And she said, oh, girl, she really deals with my neurotic mind really well. And she said, no, that's amazing. That's wonderful. And I thought, okay, I thought so. So I'm really honored too. It was selected to be in the Saturday spotlight, 7:30 p.m. on August 16th, Saturday. And then the next day will be the award show. So last round of movies, which is so cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've already talked to filmmakers who are going to be there. I think the whole 10 days. And so it's going to be something to see. And so when the audience does see it, I think you already mentioned it earlier, but when the audiences do see it, what is the main thing you want them to take away from it?
I would really love if they take away how they are viewing both themselves and women and the expectations that they're placing even subconsciously, and to check in with themselves as to what they're struggling with that they might not be fully conscious of. And I think also it would be really, really powerful and special to me if it affected the way people see animals and the way that it's easy to sort of make fun of, a dog parent or a cat parent, but those little sweet babies are fully dependent on us, and cost a lot of money, especially at the end of their lives, and require a lot of the same things. You have to take them to the vet. You have to make sure their minds are being stimulated, that they're being fed healthy food. You have to wake up and take care of them every single day. There is not a day off situation. I know there's people who board their animals and go on vacations, but I think it would be so special if people watch this and maybe laid off a bit on their friends who are pet parents and saw how very, very special and important those relationships are, just as much as our human relationships are.
Yeah, we we have a Cavalier, and so
Mm-hmm.
they rule the house.
That's right. That is absolutely right. Yes. Yeah, I'm really involved with animals, with pet rescue, dog rescues, fostering. I'm actually putting together a film fest for shorts about dogs that I'm doing in partnership with a big local LA rescue out here. And we're hoping to do that in the fall, but it'll really depend on how much I'm involved with the press for Wake Up Dead Man and those dates and how that all works out. And if not, we'll have to do that early next year. But the people I've reached out to about it so far are very excited. I think, especially if you're in this business, you probably have a pet that means a lot to you because it can be a very lonely existence. It can be a lot of traveling. It's why we see actors photographed holding their dogs or walking their dogs all the time, or we see them on set. The very first day I was on the set of Knives Out, I was really nervous. And the wonderful costume designer, Jenny, she went and got Ana de Armas's Maltese. And so that I had a dog in the room. It's like she knew I needed a dog. And then she took me to see Chris Evans' dog, Dodger, and I played with him for a while. And that settled me down tremendously. They're so good for our nervous systems and our mental health. So it's really a full circle conversation. And I don't have a dog right now. And I really am, I just can't with my schedule and all the travel that's happening and all the opportunities. It wouldn't be fair, but I will get one again and it'll be wonderful.
Well, I think it's a great idea to have a dog film festival.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotten really, it was just, it came out of being denied or being rejected from those smaller film fests. And at first I was like, am I not good at this? You have those thoughts you have. And then immediately I heard in my head, well, screw that, I'm going to make my own. Why not do something where then also it raises money, not for the film fest but for the rescue that needs the money, it needs the help. And hopefully we'll get some adopted animals adopted into their forever home, or just exposure on adopting and fostering, which so many people don't know about. I'd love to get some of those assumptions about shelter and rescue animals dispersed, because there are puppies, there are purebreds, any kind of animal you want, you can find in your local shelter or rescue. I'm very passionate about that. And Henry was really an ambassador for that as a designer Morkie dog who I got as a puppy from a rescue. So he was kind of a constant walking ambassador. And people say, oh my God, where'd you get him? What breeder? And I would say, this rescue. And it starts to change people's minds. I think that's a lot of this theme, right? Where we're talking about, it's very important to me to have people look at the way they've always felt about something, the decision they just know they can't find a purebred in a shelter. They just know they don't need therapy, the way that people black and white their lives up and say, you know what? I might be wrong. I might not know enough about this. I'm going to look into it more. That's what I hope to do as a filmmaker and as an actor.
Yeah, I love that, Kerry. And ladies and gentlemen, Kerry Frances Mama Mama is a story of a dissociated mother who sees a toddler where everyone else sees a dog. It is an emotionally tense and yet heartbreaking short film, but for those of you who do not know what dissociation is, it's a mental process where a person feels disconnected from their thoughts, their feelings, memories, or a sense of identity, often as a response to trauma or stress. Now, it can manifest in various ways, such as memory loss or feeling detached from reality. And Kerry Frances's performance in this film makes you truly believe she is dealing with dissociation and gives the audience a feeling of uneasiness and watching someone deal with this mental process. Mama Mama is an official selection at this year's iconic HollyShorts Film Festival. So when you attend, go see it. And just like Kerry said, her film is in the last block on August the 16th. So make sure that you're in the theater on that day to watch Mama Mama, as well as all the other films at HollyShorts. And Kerry, I want to thank you so much for sharing your film with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it. And thank you again for watching. And I hope everyone enjoys the movie.
I believe that they will. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and of course, you can listen to us on your way to work on Spotify, iTunes, and Audible, and more. And remember, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.